Here are the pieces for the matching plaids project. Center back, which will be open, side back, side front, center front, which will be cut on the fold, and here's the sleeve.
Look at the fabric and decide how to use the pattern.
If I look at this fabric and squint, I see very prominent yellow lines running through and less prominent dark purple and blue areas. I've decided that I want to maximize the dark purple and blue areas and minimize the yellow. Since this pattern is symmetrical, I can cut it out double. But in order to do that, I need to make sure that exactly the same thing is happening on both sides of the folded fabric. So I folded my fabric with the center of the dark purple boxes exactly down the middle of the fold, and then pinned each place this yellow square happens to the same place the same yellow square happens on the other side. So I stick my needle in the corner here, and then I look on the other side and make sure the needle is in exactly the same place, and then come back through. I've pinned the layers together through enough fabric to cut out the entire pattern. Now I have to decide the most prominent place on the pattern to make sure that everything matches. I'm choosing a spot just at the top of the bust that will run close to the top of the side seam. So I'm going to start by drawing a line that is perpendicular to my grain line on the center front piece. And then match up the next piece over where that happens, and then draw across at the same perpendicular to the grain line. I keep going around the body. It's not the end of the world that I've come up from the side seam a little bit. I can just figure out where that parallel place would be by lining up my grid ruler so that it is exactly on the side seam, and then finding my spot of the back arm's eye over there. I want the sleeve to match so that when it's going on the body, this prominent line here will be roughly the same on the sleeve. To figure that out, I find the front of the top of the armhole and the back of the top of the armhole, and I figure that my sleeve is going to be somewhere around here. So I line up the top of my sleeve with that line, and then see how it fits with the lines, with the matching lines that are underneath here and here. So that's not exactly perpendicular to the grain line, so I'm going to find a spot that's sort of halfway in between. That'll be my matching line for the sleeve. My grain line is not happening in the center of my sleeve, so I'm going to draw a new line on my pattern that will be exactly where I need the middle of the blue stripe to go. So I've put down a layer of tracing paper with the wax side up, and I've laid my fabric down on the table, double thickness, everything matched up together. Looking at my pattern and looking at my fabric, I've decided that I want my darkest stripe to go through the middle of my garment. So my matching line here, I'm going to line that up with the center of the dark blue. And then I'm going to line up the fold with the fold of the fabric and pin everything in place. Now I need to figure out exactly what's happening at this spot where the matching needs to be perfect. So what's happening is I'm halfway through this yellow stripe and halfway through the wide blue stripe. The next place that happens is over here. So I'm going to lay this point on that spot of my fabric, make sure that my grain is correct, and pin this in place. I'm less bothered about what happens underneath the arm than I am about what happens at center back. And I want center back to fall again down the middle of the dark section here. So I'm going to set up my center back piece so that that's exactly what's happening. This spot here is the center of my dark blue stripe. I can't put it on this spot here because center back is open and I need 2 inches of seam allowance and I'll only have 1 in that place. So I'm going to move it back to here and pin everything in place. Now I need to repeat the same process for the side back that I did for the side front. So figure out exactly what's happening, and this would be just the middle of that yellow stripe at that spot. So I need to find another place where that's happening. There's not enough space anywhere along here to cut out my side back piece and have seam allowance around it. So I need to look for the next place that that's possible, which would be here. Since I'm trying to minimize the yellow stripes on the sleeve, I'm going to center these lines in the center of the dark blue box. So the pattern is all laid out now, but I've got tracing paper on the underside, but not on the top side. So what I need to do now is pin my pieces so that I can peel them back a little bit without changing their position. This spot had a pin which made it impossible to mark the notches. So when I peel this back, I'm just going to make sure that that information is on the pattern. Now I can move up here and mark these pieces. Center front on the fold. Here are the lines. That says side front, side front, side seam, all the lines and notches. Center back with room for seam allowance, 2 inches. Notches, side back. Side back, side seam, 2 notches, 2 notches, 3 notches, and all the lines. And this sleeve, 1 notch for the top, 2 notches for the back.